Hi, I'm Tina Cummins,
I'm Belinda Powers. We are.
True Crime Sages. Welcome back, everybody. Tonight, Belinda and I are going to be talking about domestic violence. So I notice a lot of things in domestic violence, just thinking about it, thinking about the cycle of abuse. And, in a lot of arguments, the first thing, domestic violence situations, you notice the dysfunction, the anger, the tears, the relationship is not where it should be. But what I notice is a shift in power. What do you notice? What do you think about, Belinda?
Yeah, the same thing. As soon as you use the word no, when you tell your partner no, that's when you see the anger.
That's
That's when,
that's when the cycle starts to change.
yeah.
You put up any kind of a boundary.
Mhm.
Abusers, they don't like boundaries. They're going to cross every one of them. And if as soon as you say no, they're going to do whatever they have to do to maintain control of you.
Mhm.
So let's just be clear. There's a lot of narcissistic abuse that goes on in the world. Domestic violence incidents now on the rise are up to 1 in 3, which is terrifying.
Sorry.
Primitively, and I say abusive relationships are very primitive. And there's no higher emotional level of intelligence there on the part of the abuser, because an abuser is like a little child. They want what they want and they're going to get it no matter what. They're going to find a way to get it,
Yeah, they'll twist turn.
whether it's with you or with someone else.
Yeah,
And
they're gonna.
what I mean by saying it's very primitive and childlike behavior is that when you tell a child no, we've discussed this briefly before, but when you tell a child no, and then you let it slide, or you put up a boundary, that's how children learn not to cross those boundaries. Okay. So when you tell a child no, and then the first time and they don't listen, and you tell them no again, and the second time they don't listen, and you tell them no again, or you let them slide, or you give in to them because you just don't want to deal with it. Each time you do that, you're teaching that child how far they can push you.
Yeah, you lose a little bit of control of them.
Right. Now, in situations of domestic violence, domestic abuse, it may start out as an argument where boundaries are crossed, where there is name calling. Then eventually that boundary is pushed out to something else. It's pushed out to, okay, I did something wrong, but I don't care, and it's your fault. There's a lot of victim blaming, or you shouldn't have made me angry. You know how I get. There's a lot of that. And so when we're talking about childlike behavior, the abuser is almost always functioning, or should I say dysfunctioning, on a lower level of emotional development. They don't know how to stop themselves. There's generally it's definitely dysfunctional in that regard. From a narcissist, if you're looking at narcissistic abuse, what they want to do is control everything that you do. And abusers are all about control and power. They're all about, taking control. Do you have anything to add?
No, it's all about control. They treat you like you're a child.
But it doesn't start out that way. How does it start out?
Oh, it starts out, believe me, fireworks and,
Prince Charming.
love, and yeah, absolutely.
I love you. You're my forever love. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to,
And there's the ones that they will argue with you, blame you, and then say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry. Go buy you flowers the next day, buy you candy, buy you jewelry, buy you whatever. So you have different ones do different things, and just watch for the patterns, because believe me, you'll see them.
It's a cycle. They call it a cycle of abuse for a reason. Okay. It starts out with an incident, and that incident may be very mild. Okay. And then there's they go through the different phases, the apology phase, the blaming phase, the this phase, the that phase. Oh, it'll never happen again phase. And then they're back to going wham. Now, what starts out as arguments eventually leads to them completely shattering your illusions and pulling the rug out from under you at the same time, to where they can even make you think you're crazy.
Mhm.
Narcissistic abuse is, it's the person on the giving end of it, the one who's doling it out. They start out at a very primitive mental and emotional maturity. They don't know how to deal with their own emotions. They have a very low self-esteem. And so they tend to pick people that are more intelligent, more acceptable than them. And their goal is to get in a relationship with them, keep them up on this pedestal, and then slowly pull that pedestal out from under them until they fall flat on their face. And by doing that, they elevate themselves.
Yeah, and it makes you only want them.
Yeah, I'm gonna look up here real quick. What the just
Yeah, they want you. They
top of my
they
head.
want to get you all away from your family, friends.
Yes, they isolate you just so they can have complete control over you.
I
Okay.
mean, this can take a few years. This doesn't have to happen overnight. I mean, it can be a very slow process.
Now there's all kinds of illustrations online if you want to look. But okay, so I'm going to use this illustration first. It says, in the beginning, there is overprotection in the name of love. Okay, so it starts out as they're going to take care of you, they're going to protect you, they're going to love you, they're going to make you happy. And then eventually that goes into, you start arguing. Well, people don't want to be around arguments and all that stuff. They don't want to get in the middle of your relationship dramas. So there's a gradual, slowly isolating that person away from others. And that's called power gained through social isolation. And then eventually it'll move into a restrictive control of resources and activities. So they will restrict what you can do. Now they'll do whatever the heck they want, but they'll restrict what you can do, and they'll eventually take over your resources, your money, your finances, everything, and your activities. And if you don't comply with them, then they go through a punishment phase of anger and physical harm. And then, then they'll either, at first they'll start where they'll apologize. And then later they'll act as if nothing happened. Okay, they'll act like nothing happened or it's no big deal. Frankly, they just don't care. And then if they see you pulling away from them, what they'll do next is they'll start to give you little tidbits, or they'll throw a dog a bone by giving you little bits of kindness, maybe a compliment, something just to keep you dangling like a fish on a hook.
Yeah, make you feel special.
Yes, and then that cycle will start all over again. Now there's another illustration that's really good. In the beginning of the cycle, it's called the green stage. In the green stage, a victim will stop legal proceedings, return to the relationship, set up counseling, agree to stay, and feels happy and hopeful. And this is all in the circle of denial. In the yellow stage, the victim is nurturing, agreeable, feels tension, is walking on eggshells, tries to reason, attempts to calm the abuser, becomes anxious, stays away from others, and tries to appease their partner. In the red stage, the victim leaves, fights back, tries to reason, calls the police, tries to protect themselves, and placates. Now, in the green stage for the abuser makes promises, sends flowers, declares love, cries, says I'm sorry, blames others, brings present, begs forgiveness, wants to make love, blames outside stress, I'll never do it again, and enlists family support. In the victim's yellow stage, they're nitpicking, they're moody, they put you down, they yell, they threaten, criticize, play mind games, intimidate, isolate, destroy property, withdraws affection, blames and embarrasses the victim, and there's constant arguments. In the red stage, the abuser may cause sexual, psychological, and physical abuse, the use of a weapon, hitting, choking, humiliation, rape, beating, and verbal abuse until eventually they can kill you. Okay, so let's talk about some of those things. This is not a process that happens overnight.
Mm-mm.
You know, it will start out if you're already, okay, so let me just advise.
I think it depends on the victim. Whichever one's going to be the victim. I think it depends on them and to how fast they see what's going on.
Right.
And catch, okay, this is what's going on. I'm out. And then as soon as you, that's when it all changes. So if you do that right away, that's when it'll start.
So let me tell you some
Just
signs.
passive, it'll be a while.
Yeah. Let me tell you some signs real quick for the public out here. So someone I know that's very dear to me recently experienced a domestic violence situation. And this person was very jealous. This person accused her of messing around with a kid, of wanting to flirt out in public. Now, if you know this person at all, you know that's absolutely untrue. But it made this person feel very sad because they got out of the relationship quickly. They cut their losses and left. But it made them sad to realize that so many people don't.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Belinda and I had discussed before I watched the film in, you know, the arraignments and it was the family court or whatever in Florida. And, you know, out of 24 victims, only one said, yes, I want the restraining order. Yes, I need help. All the rest of them dismissed it, which is why it's very frustrating for the courts. But these situations don't happen overnight, okay? And my advice to someone or to everyone is do not get into a relationship when you have a low self-esteem already. If you're dealing with your own self-esteem issues, don't do it.
Yeah.
One, you should never allow anyone to verbally abuse you, physically abuse you, or psychologically abuse you. And if you see any of these things going on, you need to put your foot down and put up a boundary. Now, boundaries to an abuser, that's like a challenge. Oh, you're going to tell me what I can do?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to put up a boundary for me? Well, watch and see what I do. A really good way to test a relationship, whether or not it's going to, you know, pass the test, is to put up your boundaries early on. Put them up early. If you put up your boundaries early and you take it slow in the beginning, you'll see whether or not that person is going to turn into a monster quite easily.
I have a good friend. She got into a relationship with this man. She was head over heels in love with him.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me she was with him for about a year. And she said, oh, they'd got married right away and she was head over heels. I love him so much and blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah. I said, how many good arguments have you had? She said, none. She said, that's just it. We've never argued. I said, well, then you don't even know him yet. You don't even know how he's going to treat you, how he's going to be. How is he when he's in an argument?
Right.
And oh my God, you don't understand, Belinda. You don't understand. I said, okay.
That's the
3
honeymoon
years
phase.
down the road, 3 years down the road, this poor girl was beat. And I mean, she was brutally beat. And when he started, it didn't end. It just kept going. The cycle kept going. She stayed with him for about 10 years and finally she got out. And right now to this day, she's broke.
Because his only goal was to destroy her.
And he did.
Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah.
But you could hear her talk and she was head over heels in love. I mean, she was just,
Well, and see, that's what a lot of people don't understand when it comes to domestic violence and abuse. It doesn't start out that way. You know, it starts out that the abuser is very charming,
they'd never had an argument.
and very manipulative.
That's scary in itself. I mean, you
Very-
know, they
It's
disagree.
like it's like a chameleon. You know, they can fit into any scenario and, you know, make themselves look good, but in reality, they're not being good. They have a goal in mind, and the end goal of any abuser is to gain control over their partner, gain control over their lives, their bodies, their finances, their mind even. A lot of people don't understand the word gaslighting. Okay, gaslighting, the word gaslighting comes from the movie Gaslight. And it's, you have to see the movie, but to understand it, or to understand the movie. But gaslighting is actually where someone will start a fight, start an argument for no apparent reason other than their own thrill, or to try to make you look crazy, or try to make you think you're crazy, that something is in your imagination, that it's not really happening, just for their own thrill, just for their own self-serving purposes or their own amusement. They'll gaslight you. That's
Or if you have somewhere to go, if you have a party to go to, or God forbid, a funeral, they're gonna get you emotionally all upset before you ever go.
right.
So you don't
Exactly.
won't go.
Exactly. So gaslighting, for example, if you're going to go on a trip, even if it's a short trip for a few hours, or if you're going to go somewhere and you're going to have any kind of enjoyment, that person who is gaslighting you will start a fight, say something to you that may not have anything to do with the event, but their whole purpose is so you cannot enjoy yourself, and they maintain control of you. Let me just say this: jealousy is not flattering. If someone is jealous of you or jealous over you, it is not flattering. That is a warning sign. When you get into a relationship, you need to have a good self-esteem. And if you don't, you need to work on that self-esteem before you allow yourself to get into a relationship, so you can recognize the warning signs. And in arguments, you know, the first argument, can you describe that?
Well, but Tina, again, though, you can get the strong-minded, strong-willed, you know, and those are the ones that's going to attract these men that.
Because they try to overtake you. They try to overcome you.
And then it makes you question yourself.
Well, but a lot of times they'll go
like
after the weak.
Yeah, but
Because the weak
you do get the ones, right? But you do get the ones that get the strong ones, and then you question yourself, and you're like, okay, I was with so and so, and I really, really love them, but I wouldn't put up with that from him. But yet, I'm going to take it from this one, and it makes you question yourself, and you start thinking, am I really the one am I the one that's got the problem? And that's that.
Well, you never blame the victim, because it is a choice to abuse someone else. So you don't blame the victim, okay? But the responsibility with the victim lies in, are they caring enough for themselves? Are they caring enough for themselves? Because the person that they're with obviously doesn't care enough. That's a fact. It's a hard fact for a lot of people to swallow.
I just want to say too, you know, A lot of people don't know me. I've been with my husband 35 years.
Mhm.
Tina's been with her husband 36 years. So we're not just somebody that's divorced 15 million times. And
Well, yeah, no.
I was just saying, I didn't mean 15 million.
And my husband and I have a boundary. Don't put your freaking hands on me. You know, look, Dr. Phil always told me what other people think about me is none of my business. He's always said that. And what other people think about me, you know, is none of my business. How I treat other people is my business.
That's right.
I have a rule, and there is no domestic violence in this house. We don't put our hands on each other. We don't beat on each other. That's not happening.
But it's very easy though, even though we're strong people, to become victims. I mean, it happens.
It is. It is. And I have been a victim of domestic violence with my ex-husband.
Yeah, it happens.
And that's why I absolutely refuse to put up with it. Not once,
Yeah.
not ever again, not ever again. There was a situation, my ex-husband, I don't want to disparage the dead. He's dead now. But there was a situation where I was sitting in the dining room and my ex-husband came in from work and I was like, "Hi, honey, how's your day?" And he walked up to me and he punched me right in the face for no reason, flipped me over the chair backwards just because he had a bad day. Now, being the person I am, I grabbed the nearest thing. I picked up a vacuum cleaner, one of those old steel Kirby. I picked it up and I slung it at him, almost hit him in the head and smashed it into the dining room wall. And I had another time when, you know, I was in the kitchen and he had me backed in a corner and he was punching me in my face and I grabbed the fire extinguisher off the wall and smashed it into his head. This is not a normal situation for anyone.
No.
And it was tough because I was raising not just our daughter, well, not just my daughter that I have with my husband. Long story, but I was raising two other kids and I had to leave them. And that was the hardest decision I ever had to make in my life. But I knew that if I didn't get out of that situation, he was going to kill me, or I was going to end up killing him in self-defense. There was no, it was go. And, you know, he had control of the money. I mean, I was working third shift and, you know, paying the bills. He had gotten into drugs and he was taking all my money, beating on me. You know, I will never, ever tolerate that again from anyone. I'll put my life out there for the public. You know,
Many horror stories, you know.
I've got a lot of horror stories and I've seen a lot in a lot of the cases that we worked as, you know, as search and rescue or victims advocate. And how many times we've seen domestic violence cases end in tragedy and end in death.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's too many.
Now, my ex died of cancer, sadly. And before he died, you know, we did make peace. He called me, he found God, you know, he apologized to me for everything he'd ever done to me and everything he put my daughter through and the kids through. You know, he really genuinely apologized and felt bad for it. And this was after he was already with and married to someone else. He wanted to make his peace with me and everyone that he had wronged before he died. And so again, I'm not talking about him to try to disparage the dead, because he put me through hell. But it's not about that. It's about the warning signs. You know, what are the warning signs for someone who is trying to be a controlling abuser? And
then you got you get one of the things that the couples or both of them has been in abusive relationships.
Yeah.
Those are really toxic.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, I'm not the kind of person now, you know, I'm not young and I'm not a Gabby Petito. Somebody puts their hands on me, I'm fighting back. I don't give a shit how big you are. You know, that's your space. This is mine. Stay the hell out of my space. Stay in your space. I won't put my hands on somebody first, but if somebody puts their hands on me, they're going to get a hell of a fight. I detest violence. And that's why there is a no violence rule in my house. None. Done. I'm not tolerating that. I live with it for 6 years and no, no, no. It's better to, and when I left my ex-husband, I left everything I'd paid for. Not stuff that he'd paid for. And I did not do that for me. I did not do that for him. I did that for his children.
Right.
Because I knew I could rebuild. I did not want them to not have anything. So, you know, it was tough starting over, but my daughter and I, we walked away from it with our lives. Now, I did go back and get some stuff. I had, you know, the judge ordered the sheriff to be there and allow me to go through the house and get what was mine. And of course, you're never always going to get all your stuff. And I left him all the furniture, everything. Well, again, everything I bought, you know, washer and dryer, microwave, all the furniture, everything. Left the house. We were actually purchasing the house from his father. So in court, I wouldn't have had a leg to stand on anyway, but here I am making this house payment. I was never going to see anything out of it. So
And did you have anyone that you could talk to?
No. I don't want to throw this person under the bus, but I was told, you got yourself into this situation, you get yourself out of it. You have to be strong enough to go.
Because I mean, that's an issue, you know, if some women, they don't
Anywhere to
want to
go?
tell anybody, but yet, do they really have anybody to tell? You know, do they have anybody to talk to about it? Do they have anyone to run to?
Right?
You know, and the men too. I have a couple right now that I talk to often that's been abused by women.
Mm-hmm. And you know, that's the thing about men in domestic violence situations. They don't want to admit it because they're embarrassed. And I know some men that are in domestic violence situations, and they're no different than the women. You try to tell them, you need to move on, you need to move on, you need to move on.
What I've noticed with the two men that I've been talking to probably the last 3 years, that both of them has been so shattered. Both of them
Yeah.
has contemplated suicide.
Yep.
I mean, it's so bad.
You know, in a lot of domestic violence situations, let me talk about this. You have to get out when you can and take your kids with you. And I'll tell you why. Because very often, both male and female, they will use the children as a pawn,
Well,
as a threat for abuse, to harm you, to hurt you, to kill you. They will hurt those children.
whatever you love the most, that's what they'll use.
That's what they'll go after. That's what they'll take from you or try to take from you. If you notice initially, arguments that aren't fair, get out of the relationship. Just get out. An argument is generally two people that that are in disagreement, but there's a stalemate. Okay. And, you know, with a domestic violence partner, they don't care if you're wrong, even if they know they're wrong. They don't care. They don't care. They'll argue to the death. They don't care. Because it's not about the point you're trying to make. It's about their assertion of control.
Well, and at that point, I think there's no respect when it comes down to it. No respect.
No. And was there?
Right. Right.
Because a domestic abuser, they have no want to be in an equitable, equal relationship. Their goal is to pull the rug out from under you. Doesn't matter how much you love them, they don't care.
Yeah.
All they care about is what they want, what makes them happy. What, you know, if you notice yourself jumping every time they say go, you know, you're in an abusive relationship. So, and easy early on to say, put your foot down, make those boundaries early.
Yeah, find out how they are in an argument.
Yes.
Find out how they're going to react.
Yes. Find out if there's any jealousy there. If there's jealousy, run.
And if they're already showing anger before you do anything, get out.
Yeah. Run, Forrest, run. Do your.
And we're not just talking about little arguments. We're talking about the ones that get heated.
Yeah.
Because every relationship, you're going to have little arguments here and there.
Yeah. No, what I'm talking about is
I know what you're talking about.
In an argument that's not fair.
Or when they start
Someone
name
who
calling.
doesn't yet, or name
Belittling.
calling, or shows complete lack or disregard for empathy, or shows an extreme need for control. Run, Forrest, run.
And they want to go to that attack. You're stupid. You're stupid. You're stupid.
You know, have you ever seen a lot of people? Have you ever seen a cartoon with Wile E. Coyote and you got the Road Runner and, you know, so Wile E. Coyote is totally clueless that, you know, every scenario is a trap. That's what a domestic violence and narcissistic abuser is. Every single scenario that you get in with them is a trap. And it's to only further to hurt you. And the scary part is, again, 1 in 3. I'm not immune to it. I mean, you might have disagreements that sometimes you can work out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, every once in a while, they'll throw you a bone. But in reality, the other person, they don't care about you. Not at all. They don't care about your health, your mental health. They might profess to. They might even be upset that they're losing the person that means the most to them.
And I think one of the telltale signs too is they'll always say, well, I gave up this for you and I gave up that for you.
The narcissistic supply chain.
In reality, they didn't give up nothing. That was already
right. The narcissistic supply chain. In reality, you end up being the one providing everything for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they end up giving you nothing in return. Yeah. And oh, my favorite is they'll send you the most beautiful cards in the beginning, you know, and they'll write you the most beautiful love letters, you know, and all how, you know, we're meant to be together forever and blah, 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 blah. Listen, know your partner. Before you get into a relationship that you think is going to be the one to last for the rest of your life, get to know them, know their flaws, know what's going on, know that they're not going to be perfect. And either you're willing to accept it or you're not. And put up your boundaries early.
Yeah.
Put up your boundaries early. They cannot call you filthy names. They cannot hit you. They cannot put their hands on you. They cannot be irresponsible with finances. You know, they cannot take control of your finances. Always have a plan B. Have a plan B. That's smart. You know, and for the love of God, protect your kids. If there's domestic violence in your house and you're not leaving that situation, then you're setting up your children for domestic violence.
Yeah, it flows over to the kids.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you really notice about domestic violence situations that you'd like to share? It's such a broad category.
It is. It is. And there's so much to it.
I think for both Belinda and I, we've seen just about every scenario. I've lived through a lot of it. And, I've jumped out of a car into gravel. My ex one time, and this is I want to tell you about mind games. Okay. So a lot of times, a domestic abuser will play mind games with you. And one of the things my ex did was we were on a trip and I was way up on a mountainside on the side of the mountain. Okay. And pretty close to the edge. It wasn't windy or anything. It wasn't, if I'm standing there by myself, it's not a dangerous situation. It's a big wide open space. And he came up behind me and he grabbed me by the back of my shirt and he went like that, like he was going to push me over the edge. And ever since that happened, I can't have someone standing behind me.
I think it was to put the fear.
It was to instill fear, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
It did. It instilled fear. But it also, in my brain, says, watch your back at all times. Know who's in your periphery, whether I'm in my car, whether I'm walking down the street, wherever I am, I notice who is in my periphery. That is not being paranoid. That is a safety factor.
Right.
It did work. You'll know. I mean, you get to a certain point where you can start picking up the red flags. With a domestic abuser, just by a word or a look, you'll know if a situation is going to escalate. And again, the best advice I can say is get out of that. Nothing is worth you losing your life or your children's lives. Nothing is worth that. I don't care if you're leaving a multi-million-dollar mansion, get the hell out.
Right.
There's a lot of good information on the computer, you can look up on Google, you can just Google it, on domestic violence, on shelters in your area. There's apps that you can get where you can push a button and it'll start recording on your phone. All you got to do is push a button and it'll start recording, and then they'll send help. A lot of good information out there, but yeah, just stay safe, folks. Do what you got to do to protect yourselves and your kids. And if there's ever a question of domestic violence, you need to get the hell out of the situation.
Yeah, try and figure it out early on.
Yeah, try to figure it out early on. But if you're deep in it, it's still better to leave.
Yeah.
Now, the most dangerous time is when you leave a domestic violence situation until the day comes when you don't leave and that person kills you. Yeah. Their goal is to maintain complete control over you. And once they think they've lost control, they have no use left for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to be cognizant of that. You need to be aware. You need to be aware of how to protect yourself. You can't always do it. You can't always protect yourself, but you can try like hell. EPOs do help. A lot of people say, and we've talked about this. Look, if someone,
we agree, me and Tina normally agree on just about everything.
A lot of people like Belinda say an EPO, an emergency protective order, is just a piece of paper.
Yeah, it's almost, if they want to harm you.
And I'll give Belinda this: if someone's willing to exchange their life for a kill, nothing's going to stop them.
That's right.
Okay. But if you have an EPO and you call the police and say, I have an EPO, they'll come running and perhaps can save your life. I've witnessed that many times as well. So just,
I've only once.
All right, folks. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up for now. Do you have anything you'd like to add, Belinda?
No, just get a support team,
Yes.
get someone to listen to you.
Even if you don't have a support team, there are apps and people that you can call on the phone, free counseling that you can call on the phone. And, you know, they'll give you tips and ideas of how to get out of the situation. If nothing else, call the police and they'll set you up with a crisis center.
Yeah, do all kinds of research on different kind of mental health,
Yeah.
different signs, anything that you see them doing that it's not normal to you, look it up.
Yeah. And I gotta say, you know, it might seem, sometimes when it gets to a certain point, it's easier not to fight. It's easier to comply. But as soon as you have the opportunity, get out of the situation because
Yeah.
it's not worth your life. All right, folks, that's all we have for tonight. Thank you all for tuning in and we'll see you next time.
Good night.